There's something strange about Route 66. Maybe it's the way the desert swallows the light after sundown, or how the wind whispers things you can't quite understand. But if you ever find yourself driving through Arizona at night, especially between Seligman and Kingman, keep your eyes on the road. Don't stop for anyone. And whatever you do, don't pick up hitch. So before we begin, make sure you're comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft hum, and if you enjoy this kind of storytelling, like the video and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, let's begin. This story happened in the summer of 1998. I was 10, spending the last week of July with my aunt, Clara Morgan, in Flagstaff. Clara was a writer, quiet, sharp, and a little odd. She always locked her bedroom door in the middle of the day. She used to say some stories cling to you, and once they do, they don't let go. One evening, Clara told me a story I've never forgotten. It started with a man named Ray Mendoza, a trucker in his 40s, tough hands, soft heart. One night, just past midnight, he was hauling construction materials out of Gallup, cruising along Route 66, clear skies, empty road. Merle Haggard playing low, coffee in the cup holder. Then he saw her, a woman in a pale blue dress, standing near a closed gas station. She wasn't waving, just standing, her long black hair blowing in the wind, still as stone. Ray slowed down. Maybe her car broke down. Maybe she needed help. He pulled over, put the truck in park, reached for the passenger side door. Then he saw her eyes. They caught the moonlight wrong. Too much white, no emotion, like she wasn't looking at him, just through him. The air shifted. The desert went still. The buzzing cicadas fell silent. But Ray shook it off. "You need a ride," he called. She nodded. No smile, no words. She climbed into the cab, moving silently, graceful but wrong. Ray asked where she was headed. No answer. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her skin was pale and dry like sun-bleached leather. And there was a smell, not sweat, not perfumed. It was earth, dry soil, and something sour beneath it, like something that had been buried far too long. Ray cleared his throat and kept driving. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Still, she said nothing. And that's when things got really strange. When Ray glanced over again, her eyes were closed. He thought she was asleep until he noticed something strange. She wasn't breathing. Her chest didn't move. Her posture stayed exactly the same, frozen, like a mannequin. Ray blinked, rubbed his eyes. Maybe he was just tired. He checked the clock on the dash, 12:41 a.m., still over 2 hours until his next fuel stop. He looked back at the road, then froze. There was a smear on the windshield. No, a handprint. From the inside, long, thin fingers, spread wide, like someone had pressed their hand there from the passenger seat. But the angle was off. Too high, too wide. Ray slowly turned back to the woman. Her eyes were open, and she was staring directly at him. He nearly swerved off the road. His heart shot up into his throat. She didn't speak. She just lifted one hand slowly and pointed forward. That's when Ray saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road. Human-shaped, pale still, arms hanging by its side. Ray hit the brakes hard. The truck screamed across the asphalt, jerking sideways. He stopped just short of the figure. But when he looked again, there was nothing there. No man, no shadow. Just the empty highway stretching into the dark. Ray turned to the passenger seat. Empty. No woman, no blue dress, no scent of perfume. She was just gone. The seatbelt was still buckled. The door hadn't opened. But she wasn't there anymore. Ray sat in silence, gripping the wheel. Then he did what anyone in his shoes would do. He drove fast, didn't stop until he reached Kingman, Arizona. Didn't sleep for 2 days. He didn't talk about I-10 till he met Clara Morgan. Clara was writing a book about strange events on old American highways. She'd spent months tracing Route 66, collecting stories from gas station clerks, waitresses, and long-haul drivers. When Ray shared his story, Clara's expression changed. She stood, walked to a shelf, and pulled a thick manila folder. Inside, yellowed newspaper clippings. The top headline read, "Woman found dead on Route 66, suspect never found." Clara laid out the article. The photo was black and white, grainy, but it was her. Same pale dress, same long black hair, same cold, haunting stare. Her name was Lucinda Morel, 27. Disappeared. July 1973. Last seen hitchhiking near Peach Springs. Her body was found weeks later, buried, shallow off the shoulder. They never found her killer. But over the years, at least 8 drivers had reported seeing a woman who matched her description. Always along the same stretch of highway, always silent, always vanishing the second you looked away. Ray asked, "Do you think she's real?" Clara didn't hesitate. "She's real," she said. "And she's not done yet." She was still there, watching. After that night, Ray quit trucking. He sold his rig and vanished north, somewhere in the woods of Idaho, far from Route 66 and the Arizona heat. But the story? It didn't stay buried like he hoped. A few months later, Clara told me about another report. This time, it came from a college student in Mulvaney. April 1999. She was on a road trip with 2 friends from UC. Driving to Albuquerque, they decided to ride a stretch of historic Route 66. Stopped in Seligman for gas, got coffee, laughed about how deserted the highway felt, planned to crash at a motel in Winslow. But just past midnight, something changed. Aaron's friend Melissa was driving when the dashboard lit up. Battery, oil, temperature, all red. The car sputtered and died on the side of the road, deep in the desert. No signal, no cars, no wind, just stillness. That's when Aaron saw her. A woman 30 yards away, standing near a collapsed fence post. Pale dress, lifeless posture. She was just there, watching. "Do you see her?" Aaron asked, panic sharp in her throat. But Melissa and Tara saw nothing. "Right there," Aaron insisted. "She's right there. Why can't you see her?" They told her she was tired, maybe hallucinating. But Aaron said the woman didn't blink, didn't breathe, just watched her head slowly tilting, like she was studying Aaron from a distance. Then blink, she vanished. No movement, no sound, just gone. 15 minutes later, headlights appeared. An old man named Joe offered them a ride. Melissa and Tara accepted quickly, but Aaron kept glancing back over her shoulder, like she expected the woman to follow. When Clara interviewed her weeks later, she showed Aaron a photo, the same one she'd shown Ray. Aaron froze. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "That's her. I swear to God, that's the woman I saw." From there, Clara began to see the pattern. All the sightings happened near midnight. All the victims were women or girls in small groups. And every time, they felt watched before they even saw her. Reports followed. Radios cutting out, replaced by static. Whispers in the speakers. Some heard crying, others scraping sounds, like fingernails on metal. Clara returned to the shallow grave. Lucinda Morel, the same stretch of Route 66 where Ray had picked up the hitchhiker. The dirt still looked unsettled, like something beneath it refused to rest. Clara didn't believe in ghosts the way most people do, but she believed in trauma, in the way pain can echo across time like a scream no one ever hears. And Lucinda's pain, it hadn't stopped. It was still there, watching, waiting. Clara didn't just stop at interviews and photographs. She needed answers, closure, maybe even justice. So she reached out to an old contact detective, Louis Ramirez, RETIRED, Arizona State Police. He'd worked cold cases in the 80s and 90s, including revisiting Lucinda Merrill's file multiple times. He was skeptical when she first called. "I don't chase ghosts, Clara," she replied. "Good. Because I think this ghost is chasing us." They met in Flagstaff and spent the next week going through archived materials, crime scene photos, autopsy reports, transcripts from Lucinda's friends and co-workers. What stood out wasn't what they found, but what was missing. Lucinda's last known boyfriend, a mechanic named Daryl Hames, disappeared 2 days after her body was found, vanished. No forwarding address, no bank activity. His social security number had 0 hits after August 1973. It was like he evaporated, except for one thing. In 1978, 5 years later, a police cruiser found an abandoned trailer outside Ash Fork, hidden off a service road parallel to Route 66. Inside were stacks of old newspapers, all about missing women, and on the far wall, scratched in what looked like rust or something darker, was the name, Lucinda, in block letters, over and over again. Daryl was never officially tied to it, but Clara had a feeling, a very strong one. What's more, inside a locked toolbox under the trailers, floorboards, was a small silver locket. Inside the locket, a photo of Lucinda Morel, younger, smiling, and behind the photo, a human tooth. Clara never told anyone that part publicly. Only Detective Ramirez and Ray ever heard that detail, but it stuck with her, because the next night, when Clara tried to sleep in her motel room, she heard a soft knock at her door. Tap, 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 not loud, not demanding, just persistent. She checked the peephole. No one. She opened the door. Empty hallway. But just as she was about to shut it again, a whisper, close to her ear, though no one was behind her. "Find me." Clara froze, and for the first time in all her years of documenting the unexplained, she genuinely considered leaving, dropping the project, moving on. But something deeper kept her going, a woman's voice, a presence, a need for the truth to be unearthed, even if it brought more questions than answers. Because Lucinda wasn't the only one. Over the decades, Route 66 had become a graveyard of stories. Lost travelers, disappearing teens, men who vanished without a trace, only to be found later in shallow graves, or not at all. And in the middle of them all, always a sighting. A pale figure, sometimes standing, sometimes sitting on a mile marker or crouching beside a broken down vehicle, silent, unmoving, watching. Sometimes the hitchhiker was seen from afar, but sometimes, like in Ray's case, she was in the car with them. After the unnerving encounter at her motel, Clara decided to spend a night on the actual stretch of Route 66, where so many sightings had occurred. It was early May 1999, and the desert air was cool but dry, with a faint breeze rustling the sparse desert brush. Clara set up a small camp near a deserted rest stop just outside. She had a camera, a voice recorder, and a notebook filled with eyewitness accounts. The night was quiet at first, just the distant hum of cicadas and the occasional rush of a late-night car. Around midnight, Clara noticed something strange. The air grew colder, thicker, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Her camera battery flickered. Static hissed softly through her radio. And then, from the far end of the highway, a faint shape appeared. A woman, walking slowly, head tilted slightly, dress fluttering as if caught in a gentle wind, though there was none. Clara's heart hammered as she raised her camera and began to film. The figure stopped just short of the yellow dividing line and turned to face her. Eyes black as the void, expressionless. "The hitchhiker," Clara whispered, "Lucinda." The woman took a step forward, closer, and then a voice, soft but urgent, filled the night air. "Help me." Clara swallowed hard. "I'm trying." But as the woman raised her hand, the image blurred, then vanished. The radio crackled once more, then went silent. The chill lifted, and the desert returned to its quiet stillness. Clara packed her gear, heart pounding. She knew this wasn't just a ghost story anymore. It was a cry for justice, for truth, and she was the one who had to listen. The next morning, Clara met with Detective Ramirez again in a small diner in Kingman, Arizona. Over black coffee and stale pie, they pieced together what little evidence remained. Ramirez pulled out a worn, folded map of Route 66, marking locations of disappearances, sightings, and crime scenes. The pattern's unmistakable, he said. Every incident clusters along this stretch from Seligman to Winslow. That's less than 100 miles, but it's like a corridor of lost souls. Clara nodded. Do you think Lucinda Merrill's spirit is bound here? Either that, Ramirez shrugged, or something else is using her story to lure victims. Clara's mind raced. Was the hitchhiker a restless ghost, a predator, or something far darker? That night, Clara's dreams were haunted by fractured images, a woman's face dissolving into shadows, the cold desert wind whispering secrets, and a voice calling her name. She woke with a start, heart pounding, and a sudden resolve. She had to find that abandoned trailer near Ash Fork. If there was any clue to the truth, it was there. The morning sun was harsh as Clara drove the dusty back roads toward Ash Fork. The landscape was sparse, dry scrub brush, red dirt, and cracked asphalt leading to forgotten places. The abandoned trailer Detective Ramirez mentioned was easy to spot. It leaned precariously, faded paint peeling, windows boarded up or shattered. The air smelled of rust and old wood. Clara stepped carefully inside, her flashlight piercing the darkness. Layers of dust coated everything, and the silence was almost suffocating. As she explored, Clara found the toolbox Ramirez spoke about, hidden beneath loose floorboards. Her fingers trembled as she pried it open. Inside was the silver locket, just as described. She held it to the light, revealing Lucinda's smiling photos. But there was more, faint scratches on the back of the locket, almost like a coded message. Clara took out her notebook and began sketching the scratches, her pulse quickening. Suddenly, the trailer creaked. A cold draft swept through, extinguishing her flashlight. In the pitch black, she heard it, the soft whisper again, "Find me." Her breath hitched, but Clara steadied herself. "This isn't just a story," she whispered back. "It's a puzzle, and I'm not done yet." Back at her motel Clara studied the scratches on the locket under the dim desk lamp. The marks looked like a series of dots and dashes Morse code. She quickly pulled up a Morse code chart and began decoding. The message was chilling. Beneath the mile marker 59, her pulse quickened. The mile markers along Route 66 were faded relics, but marker 59 was known locally as Lucinda's Point, where the first hitchhiker sightings were reported. Determined, Clara set out just as dusk fell, driving slowly along the winding highway toward the marker. As she approached mile marker 59, the sky darkened and a sudden gust swept across the desert, stirring up sand and dry leaves. She parked and got out, the silence pressing in on all sides. With a flashlight, Clara examined the base of the marker. There a faint outline of a loose stone, almost hidden beneath the dirt. Her hands shook as she pried it loose. Beneath was a small metal box, rusted shut. Using a nearby rock, she smashed it open. Inside, a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. She unfolded the top letter. The handwriting was shaky but clear. It was a confession. A desperate, chilling confession from Daryl Hames, Lucinda's boyfriend. He wrote of obsession, jealousy, and an accident that turned deadly. He begged for forgiveness and pleaded with anyone who found the letters to understand his torment. Clara's eyes stung with tears. This was the truth someone had tried to bury. But as she read, a sudden shadow passed over her. A soft voice whispered, "Thank you." Clara spun around, heart pounding. The hitchhiker was there standing silently, her face calm, almost at peace. Then, with a final, lingering glance, she faded into the night. Clara stood alone by the mile marker, the desert wind whispering secrets she would never forget. Days passed, But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the story was still unfinished. She kept replaying the moment the ghostly figure thanked her and vanished, near mile marker 59. What had Lucinda really wanted? Determined to dig deeper, Clara returned to the local library. The librarian, an elderly man named Harold, was familiar with the town's haunted history and quietly slid a faded newspaper clipping across the counter. The headline read, "Tragic Death on Route 66. Young woman disappears. Boyfriend suspected." The article detailed Lucinda Merritt's last known moments in May 1957. The same month Clara had been camping. It mentioned that Daryl Hames had never been charged due to lack of evidence, but had moved away soon after. Harold lowered his voice. Some say her spirit still roams the highway, looking for justice or closure. Others say she's warning travelers to stay away after dark. Clara thanked him, feeling the weight of the town's secrets pressing down. That night, back in her motel room, Clara's voice recorder suddenly crackled to life. A whisper, barely audible, said, "Follow the road. Find the truth." Goosebumps prickled her skin. She knew the road held more than just memories. It held the key. The next day, Clara mapped out her route carefully, planning to revisit every key location tied to Lucinda's story. From the rundown motel to the lonely rest stops, she retraced footsteps long forgotten. As twilight fell, Clara stopped at an old gas station near Peach Springs. The place was shuttered, but through the grimy windows, she spotted something unusual. A faded photograph pinned behind the counter. It was Lucinda, smiling brightly, holding the same silver locket Clara had found. Suddenly, Clara felt a presence behind her. She turned sharply, but no one was there. A whisper brushed past her ear, "Don't stop." Her heart pounded. She snapped a picture of the photo and hurried back to her car. Driving under the dim glow of Clara's radio suddenly burst into static again. Then a clear voice, soft but urgent, broke through. "Find me." The same voice? Clara gripped the wheel tighter. This was no longer just a story. It was a mission. That night, Clara parked near the edge of the Mojave Desert, where the desert's cold breath mingled with the night air. The stars above were sharp and bright, but an unsettling silence hung heavy. Clara set up her recorder again, hoping to catch more voices from the past. As she whispered into the mic, a sudden breeze stirred the dry leaves nearby. Then, faint footsteps echoed behind her. She spun around, nothing but shadows. Suddenly, a chilling, spectral figure materialized before her, the Midnight Hitchhiker. Her face pale, eyes dark, and her blue dress fluttering in the wind. "Help me," the apparition whispered. Clara's voice trembled. "What do you need?" The ghostly woman pointed toward the desert, then vanished. Clara, heart racing, grabbed her flashlight and headed into the vast emptiness. What lay ahead was unknown, but Clara knew she had to follow. Clara's flashlight cut through the desert, darkness as she followed. The faint trail indicated by the apparition. The wind whispered around her, carrying fragments of long-forgotten voices and desert secrets. After several minutes, she came upon a shallow grave marked by a rusted, broken cross half buried in sand. Nearby, wild desert flowers struggled to bloom despite the harsh Clara knelt, brushing sand away to reveal a nameplate Lucinda. Tears welled up as Clara realized the truth. This was where Lucinda had been buried, hidden from the world. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply. Clara felt a presence, close by, gentle, sorrowful, yet relieved. The Midnight Hitchhiker's voice echoed softly in her mind. "Thank you, Clara Morgan." As the first light of dawn painted the horizon, Clara stood, knowing her journey had brought peace to a restless soul. But deep down, she understood some roads never truly end. As the sun rose higher, Clara packed up her gear, the weight of the past lifting from her shoulders. The haunting presence of Lucinda had faded, replaced by a serene calm that settled over the desert. Back in Seligman, Clara reflected on everything she had uncovered. This wasn't just a ghost story. It was a reminder some spirits linger because they seek understanding, justice, or simply a voice to tell their truth. She sat by the window, the hum of Route 66 in the distance, and whispered softly, "Rest now, Lucinda. Your story is told." Before she turned off the recorder, Clara Morgan's voice came through clear and steady. "Thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadows of Arizona's Route 66. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Clara After Dark. Share your own experiences or thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from and what time it is in your world. Together, we keep these stories alive. Her final words lingered in the night. Until next time, keep your lights on. And remember, sometimes the road less traveled leads you right into the unknown.